Hi, I'm Chesalvi. In the previous class, we learned about why it is important to keep a good attitude while drawing. In this class, we learned about the basic tools from Clip Studio Paint and how I personally use them. First of all, we'll create a new canvas. You can either do that by going up here, selecting File, and then New, or pressing Command N. A quick disclaimer, whenever I say command, that will be control on your computer if you are using Windows, and whenever I say option, that's alt if you are using Windows. Some of these tools I'll only mention here so you know they exist and can experiment on your own. Others, I'll go back to them in future chapters because I use them quite frequently. Let's begin with pen and pencil brushes. Here on the left, you can find all the tools from Clip Studio. More or less, I think this is common to every drawing software. When you click on one of these two, you'll see all the different brushes that you have in each category. For example, in here we've got pens and we've got markers. And in here we have pencil and we've got pastel. Each of these different brushes have different attributes, so you can try them all and see which ones you like the most. The difference between pen and pencil is that the lines drawn with the pen are more clean and don't have texture. I like using the pencil because it gives a more loose and traditional aspect to my art, while the standard pen is great for example, sticker or modes with a more clean aspect. The decision to use any of them is entirely up to you. I encourage you to try doing the same thing with a bunch of them and think of which ones work better with the way you work. It's entirely a matter of which ones makes you the most comfortable. Now let's move on to layers. You can find them here in the layer panel. As I told you during the introduction, layers are one of the most important elements of digital painting. The idea is that you can create as many layers as your computer or tablet will allow you to, and this gives you the commodity of separating, for example, each different color from an illustration, so later it's easier to make changes such as color corrections without altering the rest of the drawing. For example, in here, I divided this portrait of Pepito into layers. One is a face, and the other one is a head, so I can move each of these layers freely without altering the other one. You create layers by pressing this button in here, and you delete them by pressing this trash icon in here. Another thing about layers is that you can change the way they interact with each other. I recommend that if you're new to this, you try yourself with different colors and effects to see how they behave depending on how you set them. Now I'm going to tell you the three that I use the most. And of course, how you can use them. In order to do that, I am creating three little circles first. Feel free to follow along with me using any color that you want. It doesn't have to be this one. Here in the layer panel, you can click on this button and see all the blending modes that are available. As you can see, there are a lot, but as I just told you, I'm only going to show you the three that I use the most. Let's begin with multiply. The colors in this layer will add to the colors below, making them darker. Useful when creating shadows, which I normally make taking either a purple or a blue shade. As you can see, the colors that I am using in the layer with the multiply effect are mixing with the base orange from the layer below, making it a lot darker. Overlay. If you use black on this layer, it will behave more or less as if you were using the same color as below in a multiply layer, only that a little more vibrant. Choosing one or another when creating shadows only depends on which effect I am going for in each illustration, so I always try both and see which one looks better. Oh, and if you want to change the opacity of a layer, simply select it and come to this bar in here and slide it to give more or less opacity. See? This way you can arrange your layers in a way that they don't look so intense and change the level of its transparency. Ideal for when you are creating lights or shadows, for example, but you don't want them to look so dramatic. Now, on to soft light. I mostly use this for little portions of spark or light in a soft yellow, orange, or white. You can of course use any other color depending on the mood you want to give to your illustration. But this blending mode makes the colors on the layers below a bit more bright. These blending modes are so fun to play and experiment with. By using layer effects, you give volume and contrast to an otherwise flat illustration, so don't underestimate their power. For example, see how I made a bit of volume to this little circle here by using multiply and soft light only. Now let's continue. After I've finished writing this, we're going to learn about locking and clipping, which is something that I honestly use a lot. Let me create a simple shape so you can see better what I am talking about. If you press this button while with a layer selected, it will lock it. You'll see this lock icon in the layer, meaning that you'll only be able to paint in the area that's already painted. Like this. See? No matter how hard I try, when I try to paint in this layer, I can only apply color in the previously painted orange area. This will be very useful not only when we want to change the color that we applied on an illustration, but also for doing little details such as coloring the line art. Let's try clipping now, which is something similar that we are also going to be using during the whole course, same as locking. Now if you create a new layer and press this icon that reminds me of a sandwich, you'll see this red bar in here, and that means that you'll only be able to paint in the area covered in the layer below. This is called clipping, and there can be as many clipped layers to a single layer as you want. Now, the difference between locking and clipping is that with clipping you have the different colors, for example, organized in different layers, so it's easier to change, for example, the color of one of the layers or arrange them in a different order, if that's what you want to do. Now, let's put all this into practice. I'll draw a nice little ring using all of this knowledge. I'm going to create a new canvas for this. And what I'm going to do is take the ellipse subtool in any color. Here you can see the tool figure. It can look like any of these icons. In my case, it looked like the ellipse because it's the last one that I use. So now we're going to create our circle. Now if I hold Shift while I'm creating the circle, it will look like a perfect circle. And that's what we're going to do today. And then now we'll transform it to give it a little of perspective. We can either press this icon in here or Command T to transform the object. Now I can transform it freely, but if I hold Shift again, it will escalate to the original proportions. What we're going to do now, however, is take the Command key or Control in the case of PC users. And what this allows me is to transform it freely and give it, as I said, a little of perspective. Let me arrange this a little bit. Try to do it yourself too, so you see how it works. Now I press Intro to apply that transformation. And now we're going to duplicate the layer by using Command C and Command V. In other words, copy and paste. And now we're going to lock it and give it a different color so we can distinguish one from another. I am now using Command T again to make the inner hole of our ring. So by default, the transformation will be made from the corners, but if I hold Shift and Option while transforming, it will make the transformation from the center. Just another reminder for PC users that when I say Option, you should be pressing Alt. Move it slightly to the upper side in order to, again, create the illusion of perspective. And let's duplicate it once more. Command C and Command V. Now this tool in here is called the eyedropper. And what it does, it takes any color from your canvas. I'm going to take the color of the canvas and paint a new circle in that same color, so it looks like a donut now. If you want to access quickly to the eyedropper by using its shortcut, you have to press I in your keyboard. You can also use it with the right click of your mouse or the button of your pencil that's equivalent to the right click, in case you are using a pen tablet. Move it down a little bit, and after that what I'm going to do is clip it to the circle below. And here is our ring that looks kinda more like a donut really. Now let's transform it in a cylinder. Again, Command C and Command V. Move it around a little bit. Let's change the color again. And for that, we lock the layer and select a different color from the color wheel. And now we're going to fill the areas that are left by tracing a line from the edge of the circle to another and coloring the inner part. You can create straight lines by holding Shift, like this. I'm going to make these two circles a bit bigger by using Command T. And now that our little ring is done, we're going to color it more properly. So with this icon here, I'm creating a new folder to put all my 4 layers inside. See, now I can arrange these 4 layers at the same time by having the folder selected. We're going to use folders a lot in the next classes because they are so important for keeping order. Now I'm duplicating our little ring by pressing again Command-C and Command-V, and having selected the folder that's containing all of our layers, so we duplicate the entire folder. And I'm going to give it a bit more of a gold color. So I'm locking these layers here and selecting a shade of orangish yellow. In order to create my golden ring, I am locking the layers of the blue upper circle and the purple one below it. I am going to set now a little source of light, which is going to be here. Of course, this part will be in the dark, so I'm creating a new clipped layer on multiply mode, turning the opacity to 35, and with a purple color, creating the shadows. So these kind of materials normally have some kind of light reflection kind of thing, even in the part that is in the dark. So I'm creating a new clipped layer with a soft light effect and a yellow color. So since the source of light is here, I'm going to create another soft light layer to create another reflection. Now this part is also in the shadows, so I'm taking this same color that we use in this other part, and for the last effect, a few white lines to give it contrast and volume. I made smaller my brush tip by holding Option and Command or Alt and Control and then moving down my pencil. You can move it up to make the contrary effect and make your brush tip bigger. When we are drawing surfaces that have very clear different parts, like this ring, for example, the edges that separate one side from another will generally have this kind of dramatic reflection. This little detail gives a lot of volume and realism to these types of drawings. And there it is. And now we can create the line art from this structure, if you like that. I find it simpler and easier this way than if you have to draw the element first and then color it. I hope it's useful for you too. Playing with shapes is not only useful for making rings. Another element I create a lot by using this trick is hats. You can create a lot of elements really by combining figures, and for me it's easier this way than throwing a sketch and trying to figure out the perspective of an object. This exercise was just a little excuse so we get familiarized with the program tools and the shortcuts. So please take your time in creating a ring like the one I did after you finish the class. Moreover, if you are not very familiarized with your drawing software yet, I find it really useful to use shapes and deform them for drawing different geometrical objects in perspective, in a way that looks credible. And also, after you do this little exercise, you'll be more familiar with locking, clipping, and using blending effects, which is just the most fun part of drawing in digital. So don't skip today's missions, please. Today, we learned about the most important tools and subtools from Clip Studio Paint. In the next class, we'll learn about some extra tools, such as software and online resources to make your life easier. See you soon. I'm going to give you the missions for today. Experiment with the different brushes that your drawing software has. If you are using Clip Studio Paint, feel free to download the list of shortcuts that I provide with this lesson, so you can practice and get the hang of them. If you didn't follow along with me, go back to minute 10 and try to recreate the ring that I just did. After you're done with this, go to the class resources and try to recreate the elements that I'm attaching there. Remember to use the same technique that we've been using while creating the ring during the class. I'll see you in the next class.